Welcome back to the Fantasy Price Check. Today we're going to be talking about where you should be drafting Miles Sanders. If this is your first time here, let me tell you what we do. We grade player ADPs and we grade them based upon whether they are overpriced, underpriced, or fairly priced, and today we're getting into Miles Sanders. Before we get into Miles Sanders, I need to ask you guys for a favor. Hit that subscribe button down below to help keep this channel growing. Let's get into Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is the 10th running back off the board, being drafted 15th overall. Among running backs, he's being drafted after Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Nick Chubb, and ahead of Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Miles Sanders should be a top 10 running back that gets drafted in the first round, so let's get into why. Let's start with last year's stat line. 1,327 total yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie. And that was on low volume, with him barely being used in the first half of the season. Miles Sanders had 179 rush attempts for 818 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Where he got it done, though, was as a receiver. He had 63 targets for 50 receptions, 509 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. Miles Sanders' season was a tale of two halves. He got off to a slow start and then took over once Jordan Howard went down with an injury in Week 9. Miles Sanders got the backfield to himself beginning in Week 11, and that's when he began to take off. Miles Sanders finished last year as the RB15. However, from weeks 11 to 17, when Jordan Howard is out, Miles Sanders was the RB7 in total points and the RB11 in points per game. His 16-game pace, based upon his production from weeks 11 to 17 when Jordan Howard was out, would be 235 carries, 1,102 rushing yards, 82 targets, 64 receptions, 466 receiving yards, and 9 total touchdowns, 4.5 receiving and 4.5 rushing. That is over 1,500 total scrimmage yards. Only 8 running backs had 1,500 total scrimmage yards last year. Christian McCaffrey, Zeke, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Austin Eckler. A lot of Miles Sanders haters will say that it took an injury to Jordan Howard for Miles Sanders to break out. While it's true that most of Miles Sanders' production came after Jordan Howard was out, Miles Sanders' production came based upon his own merit. Miles Sanders is an extremely talented running back. Just take a look at his athletic profile on playerprofiler.com. He's top-notch in speed score, burst score, and agility score. Last year among running backs, he ranked 7th in yards per touch, ranked 5th in juke rate, and ranked 13th in evaded tackles. He got off to a slow start last year because he was a rookie coming into the NFL and needed time to adjust to NFL speed. Early in the season, Miles Sanders was making some rookie mistakes. He was not hitting the right gaps, he was not taking the right angles, and he was not diagnosing defenses. Things started to click for Miles Sanders at about the halfway point through the season, and that's right around the same time that Jordan Howard went down with an injury. I believe that the Eagles did a great job at coaching this kid up. It also helps that he's running behind a top 10 offensive line. I expect Miles Sanders to continue right where he left off and have a monster 2020 season. The best part about Miles Sanders is that there's absolutely no threat to his workload unless the Eagles happen to sign Devonta Freeman in free agency, which I don't expect them to, but even if they do, I still expect Miles Sanders to put up huge numbers. The Eagles have said multiple times that they're comfortable with giving Miles Sanders a full workload. They don't see him as a guy that needs a limited workload. Miles Sanders is about the same size as Christian McCaffrey, and he's got a good build, so he could easily handle 275 to 300 touches. This year, the Eagles' backfield consists of Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Corey Clement. And last year, the Eagles gave 386 carries to their running backs. This year, I'm only expecting the Eagles to give Boston Scott about 5 to 6 carries per game, which would be about 100 carries over the course of the entire season. And last year, Corey Clement didn't play due to an injury, but I would only expect about 3 to 4 carries per game from him. Miles Sanders could easily get to 225 to 240 carries this year and add another 50 to 60 receptions on top of that. With that type of volume, Miles Sanders should easily hit 1,000 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards in order to finish in the top 10 in total yards by the end of the season. Miles Sanders is a surefire top 10 running back for me. He is absolutely worthy of a first-round pick and should be drafted every single time he's available in the second round. I have Miles Sanders higher in my rankings than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kenyon Drake, and Aaron Jones. He's firmly in the tier with Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs. I'm really torn on how to rank those 3 players. Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs are going to see more carries, but Miles Sanders has them beat in the receiving game. In standard and half-point PPR leagues, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs, then Nick Chubb, then Miles Sanders. However, in PPR leagues, you would be able to make a case for Miles Sanders over those guys because Miles Sanders is going to get about 50 to 60 receptions, and Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb are going to get about 30 to 40 receptions. I like all 3 of those guys, and I would be happy with any one of them as my RB1. Miles Sanders is underpriced. His ADP should be in the first round. You could bank on 1,500 total yards and you could draft him as your RB1. Guys, if you enjoyed this price check, give it a thumbs up, and I got 2 more for you. I'm going to throw up the price checks for Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb, so be sure to check those out. And don't forget to subscribe below. I'll see you guys on the next one.